Jack Miller wiped sweat from his brow as he tightened the final bolt on the engine housing. The maintenance bay of the starship Orion hummed with activity around him, but Jack was focused entirely on his work. As the head mechanic, he took pride in keeping the ship running smoothly even when parts were scarce and missions were long. At 32 years old, Jack had spent nearly a decade in space. He joined the Earth Space Force after college seeking adventure among the stars. Adventure had been in short supply lately. The Orion was on its third consecutive border patrol, and Jack had fixed the same cooling system so many times he could do it with his eyes closed. Mary Stevens, the ship's communication officer, poked her head into the maintenance bay. "Jack, you should come to the bridge. The captain wants all senior staff," she said before rushing off. Jack sighed and put away his tools, wondering what could be important enough to interrupt his work. The bridge buzzed with tension. When Jack arrived, Captain Laura Bell, a stern woman with graying hair, stood before the main view screen, which showed a small vessel drifting in space. The ship was unlike any human craft Jack had ever seen. It had a sleek teardrop shape with a surface that seemed to shimmer like mother of pearl. "We picked up a distress signal 20 minutes ago," the captain explained. "No response to our hails. The ship's design matches. Nothing in our database." Jack studied the strange vessel. It appeared damaged with what looked like weapon scars along one side. "I need a boarding team to check for survivors," Captain Bell said, looking around the room. "We have no idea what we might find in there, so be prepared for anything." Jack volunteered along with Susan Wright, the ship's doctor, and two security officers, Peter Green and Diane Foster. The team suited up and boarded their shuttle. The closer they got to the mysterious ship, the more beautiful and alien it appeared. The surface wasn't metal as Jack first thought, but some kind of crystalline material that shifted colors as they approached. They found an entry port that matched reasonably well with their docking equipment. After several tense minutes of adjustments, they managed to create an airlock seal. Jack checked the atmosphere readings, breathable but different smells. Strange but not toxic. He reported the team put on lightweight breathing masks as a precaution and entered the vessel inside. The alien ship was even more bizarre. The corridors curved, organically like being inside a seashell. Surfaces glowed with soft blue light that seemed to respond to their presence, brightening as they moved forward. Everything felt alive somehow, though Jack couldn't explain why. They followed the main corridor, toward what seemed to be the center of the ship. Gravity was slightly lighter than Earth standard, making their movements feel bouncy and awkward. Jack noticed a sweet smell like cinnamon, mixed with something unfamiliar that penetrated even through his mask. The corridor opened into a circular room with what appeared to be control stations. The technology was unlike anything Jack had seen before, with no visible buttons or screens, just smooth surfaces with glowing patterns. Slumped in front of one of these stations was a figure. It was clearly not human, but humanoid. The figure had pale blue skin and long silvery hair that seemed to float slightly as if underwater. Even unconscious, there was a grace to the alien's form. Jack approached carefully while Susan readied her medical scanner. "It's alive," Susan whispered as her device beeped. "Female. I think unconscious but stable." Jack knelt beside the alien woman. Her face was striking with high cheekbones and delicate features. She wore a fitted jumpsuit made of material that shifted colors like the ship's hull as Jack gently moved to check for injuries. The alien's eyes suddenly fluttered open. They were large and almond-shaped with pupils that seemed to contain swirling galaxies of silver and purple. The alien woman gasped and spoke words Jack couldn't understand. Her voice was musical, almost like singing. "It's okay. We're here to help." Jack said, knowing she probably couldn't understand him either. The woman tried to move but winced, in pain. Susan scanned her more thoroughly. Broken bones, or whatever her equivalent is. Susan said, "We need to get her to the Orion's medical bay." The alien woman watched them cautiously, but didn't resist as they prepared to move her. She seemed to understand. They wanted to help. When Jack carefully lifted her, she was surprisingly light. Her skin felt cool to the touch and had a slight texture like fine silk. Peter and Diane searched the rest of the ship, finding no other survivors but plenty of evidence of an attack. The ship's systems were badly damaged and likely beyond repair. They collected some data crystals and technology samples before returning to the shuttle back on the Orion. The alien woman was taken to the medical bay. The ship's translator was working to decipher her language while Susan treated her injuries. The alien remained conscious, watching everything with those galaxy eyes. She seemed particularly interested in Jack, following his movements whenever he was in the room. By the next morning, the translator had made progress. The alien woman could now understand basic phrases in English, and the crew could understand some of her language too. Her name was Lyra, and she was from a species called the Astrians. Her ship had been a research vessel studying this region of space when they were attacked by raiders. The rest of her crew had escaped in pods, but she had stayed behind to pilot the damaged ship. Jack was assigned to look after Lyra since she seemed most comfortable. With him, he brought her meals and helped her move around the medical bay as she recovered. Susan was amazed at how quickly Lyra healed. Within days, she was able to walk on her own. Her bones mended twice as fast as a human's would. Lyra learned English with remarkable speed. Soon she was having complex conversations with the crew. Jack found himself volunteering for extra shifts in the medical bay just to talk with her. She was curious about everything human, asking endless questions about Earth and its customs. Jack in turn learned about the Astrians. They were from a star system far beyond the borders of human space. Their civilization was ancient and advanced, though they rarely interacted with other species. One evening, as Jack was explaining human family structures, Lyra tilted her head curiously. "You humans choose your life partners based on emotions?" she asked. "Yes, usually, love." Jack replied. "What about your people?" Lyra's galaxy eyes seemed to shine brighter. "We have many ways. One of the most sacred is the life debt. When someone saves your life, a bond is formed that cannot be broken. It is deeper than what you call marriage." Jack nodded, not fully understanding but fascinated by the concept. Captain Bell decided to change course for Outpost 7, the nearest human settlement. They would seek help for Lyra there and report their findings about the attack on her ship. The outpost was 2 weeks away, giving Lyra more time to recover and learn about humans. As days passed, Jack found himself drawn more and more to the alien woman. There was something about her that fascinated him beyond her exotic appearance. She had a wisdom and grace that made her seem both younger and older than her actual age, which she said was equivalent to 28 Earth years. Lyra began to join the crew for meals in the mess hall. She still drew stares, but most people were friendly and curious. She learned card games, laughed at jokes, and shared stories about her world. One evening, she even sang for them, her voice creating harmonies that no human could possibly make. Everyone sat in stunned silence when she finished. Jack walked Lyra back to the medical bay after dinner. "Were you a musician on your world?" he asked. "No." Lyra smiled. "I was a scientist studying other cultures. That is why I was on the research ship. We were looking for new civilizations to learn from." Jack was impressed. "I was just a mechanic before joining the Space Force. I always liked fixing things." When they reached the medical bay, Lyra paused at the door. "You are much more than just a mechanic, Jack Miller," she said softly. "You have a good heart." The way she said his name made something flutter in his chest. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Lyra and the strange feelings she stirred in him. It was crazy to feel this way about someone from another species, wasn't it? Yet he couldn't deny the connection between them. Was it just curiosity or something more? Meanwhile, in the darkness of space, the raiders who had attacked Lyra's ship were following the trail of the Orion. Their leader, a scarred human mercenary named Vincent Kane, studied the sensor readings. "We found her, boys," he growled to his crew. "And this time she'll give us what we want, or that human ship will be space dust." Lyra stood at the observation deck window, gazing at the stars. The Orion moved steadily through space, its engines a gentle hum beneath her feet. She had been on the human ship for 10 days now and was growing stronger each day. The medical officer, Susan, had been amazed at how quickly her bones had healed. It was normal for Astrians, but Lyra enjoyed seeing the humans. Surprise. Jack entered the observation deck carrying 2 steaming cups. He had started bringing her what humans called Hot chocolate. During their evening talks, Lyra found the sweet drink delightful, especially with the tiny soft things called marshmallows floating on top. Here's your chocolate, Jack said. Standing beside her at the window, I added extra marshmallows. Lyra took the cup gratefully, her fingers brushing against his. The touch sent a small tingle through her hand, a reaction that had been happening more frequently lately. Thank you, she said, sipping the warm drink. The stars look different from this part of space, she observed. Our astronomers never mapped this region thoroughly. Jack nodded. The same for us. This border area is still being explored. That's why the Orion is out here. Lyra turned to study his face in the starlight. She had become fascinated with human expressions. Jack had a strong face with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. His hair was the color of the rich soil on her homeworld, and sometimes she wanted to touch it to see if it felt as soft as it looked. Lyra had been careful not to tell Jack too much about Astrian customs, especially regarding life debts. Her people believed that when someone saved your life, you became bonded to them spiritually. Jack had saved her, and by Astrian tradition, they were already married in the deepest sense. But humans had different beliefs, and she didn't want to confuse or frighten him. Tell me more about Earth, Jack said, interrupting her thoughts. I told you about the oceans yesterday, but I didn't get to the mountains. Lyra smiled. She loved hearing about his homeworld. It sounded beautiful and wild, so different from her own carefully controlled environment. Their conversation flowed easily, as it always did. Jack described hiking in mountain forests, the smell of pine, trees, and the sound of birds. Lyra told him about the crystal cities of her world, where buildings grew rather than being built, and changed color with the seasons. When Captain Bell entered the observation deck, they were laughing over Jack's story about getting lost during his first camping trip. The captain rarely smiled, but her expression softened slightly at the sight of them. Lyra, I need to speak with you, she said. We will reach Outpost 7 in 4 days. I need to file my report about your situation. Is there anything else you can tell us about the raiders who attacked your ship? Lyra's mood darkened. They called themselves the Black Nova. I believe they are mostly humans with some members of other species. Their leader spoke to our captain. Before the attack, he demanded access to our biotech, said he'd take it by force if necessary. When we refused, they opened fire. Captain Bell frowned. Biotech. What kind of biotech? The Astrians are known for their medical advances, Lyra said carefully. We were carrying research samples, regenerative tissue technology mostly. The captain didn't know how much to reveal. Her people were secretive about their biological capabilities for good reason. Other species had tried to steal their advances before. Jack noticed her hesitation. What aren't you telling us, Lyra? He asked gently. Lyra looked between the two humans who had shown her nothing but kindness since her rescue. Could she trust them with the truth? Her people would say no, but her instincts said otherwise. The raiders wanted our biological enhancement technology, she admitted. Most Astrians have certain abilities that other species consider unusual. We can heal quickly, as you've seen, but we can also sometimes share energy to heal others or even temporarily enhance our physical capabilities. These abilities are part of our natural evolution, but others see them as valuable technology to be stolen. Captain Bell looked skeptical but interested. You can heal others. With your hands, Lyra nodded, sensing the captain's disbelief. It's not magic. It's just biology. Our cells can generate specific energy patterns. That is what the raiders want. They believe they can extract this ability and sell it to the highest bidder. But they can't. Right? Jack asked. It doesn't work that way. Lyra looked down. They might be able to, with the right samples and technology. It's possible. Though any artificial version would be crude and dangerous. That is why we guard our biological research so carefully. The captain thanked Lyra for the information and left to update her report. Jack remained staring at Lyra with new eyes. You never mentioned these abilities, he said softly. Lyra sighed. We don't speak of them to outsiders. Usually, She hesitated, then held out her hand, palm up. "Would you like to see Jack?" Nodded, looking both nervous and curious. Lyra concentrated, and slowly a soft silver blue light began to glow in her palm. It swirled like a tiny galaxy, casting gentle illumination on their faces. Jack gasped but didn't pull away. "This is energy from my cells," Lyra explained. "I can direct it outward for healing or other purposes." "That's incredible," Jack whispered, reaching out, but stopping short of touching the light. Lyra smiled and took his hand, guiding his fingers into the glow. He felt a warm, tingling sensation, pleasant and somehow familiar, like the feeling of standing in sunshine after a long winter. The demonstration was interrupted by a sudden blaring alarm. Red lights flashed throughout the ship, and Captain Bell's voice came over the intercom. "All hands to battle stations. Unknown vessel approaching at high speed. Defensive positions." Lyra. Jack's expression turned serious. "We need to get you somewhere safe." They rushed from the observation deck as crew members ran to their posts. The ship shuddered violently, throwing them against a wall. Jack steadied Lyra, and they continued toward the medical bay, which was in the most protected section of the ship. Just as they rounded a corner, the ship rocked with an impact much stronger than before. The lights flickered and emergency systems activated. "They've hit us hard," Jack said grimly. "Those are weapons designed to disable, not destroy. The raiders." Lyra whispered. "They found me." Jack nodded. "We need to move faster." They made it to the medical bay where Susan was securing equipment. Another hit rocked the ship, knocking loose panels from the ceiling. Jack pulled Lyra under a sturdy table as debris fell around them. Captain Bell's voice came over the emergency channel. "Their weapons are specifically targeting our engines and shields. They want to board us." Lyra felt a cold dread. "They came for me and my research." She turned to Jack. "I can't let them capture me." "You don't understand what they'll do." Jack gripped her shoulders. "We won't let them take you. The Orion has good defenses." Lyra shook her head. "You don't know these people. They are ruthless. They will kill everyone on board to get what they want." The ship rocked with another blast. This one knocked out the main power systems. Emergency lighting bathed the medical bay in an eerie red glow. "They're using EMP weapons," Susan said. "These aren't ordinary raiders. They have military-grade technology." Jack made a quick decision. "Lyra, come with me." "Susan, stay here and be ready to receive casualties." He led Lyra out of the medical bay and down a narrow corridor that most crew members didn't know about. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked as they squeezed through the tight space maintenance tunnels. Jack explained. "They run through the entire ship. I know every inch of them. We'll stay hidden." They crawled through dark passages, hearing distant sounds of fighting. The raiders had managed to board the Orion despite the crew's resistance. Jack led Lyra to a small chamber filled with spare parts and emergency supplies. "This is my secret spot," he said with a grim smile. "No one knows about it. Not even the captain has." They huddled in the hidden room. Jack explained his plan. "We'll wait here until the fighting stops. If the raiders take control of the ship, we'll use these tunnels to reach the escape pods. We can launch when they're not expecting it and send a distress signal to outpost." 7 Lyra looked at him with those galaxy eyes. "I can't let you risk your life for me." Jack touched her arm gently. "Too late, I already saved you once. Might as well make it twice." Lyra felt a surge of emotion toward this human who had become so important to her in such a short time. By the traditions of her people, they were already bound together, but she knew humans didn't share this belief. They waited in tense silence for hours, occasionally hearing distant sounds of struggle. The ship's communication system was down, so they had no way of knowing what was happening. Finally, everything went quiet. Jack cautiously opened the chamber door and peered into the maintenance tunnel. "It's too quiet," he whispered. "We need to move." They made their way through the narrow passages toward the escape pod bay, Jack leading with a small flashlight. Suddenly, voices echoed through the metal walls. Someone was in the tunnels with them. Jack quickly pulled Lyra into a side passage and turned off the light. They pressed against the wall, barely breathing as heavy footsteps approached. "No, they're in here somewhere," a rough voice said. "The scanner shows 2 life forms in this section, the alien bitch and someone else. Find them. Vincent wants the Estrian alive, but the other one doesn't matter." Jack felt Lyra trembling against him and squeezed her hand reassuringly. The footsteps came closer. Jack could see the beam of a powerful flashlight sweeping across the main tunnel just feet from their hiding place. He looked around desperately for a weapon but found nothing. More footsteps joined the first. They were being surrounded. Jack struggled against the 3 raiders who had pinned him to the floor of the maintenance tunnel. His initial advantage of surprise had faded quickly, and now he was outnumbered and overpowered. One raider, a burly man with a scar across his cheek, pressed a knee into Jack's chest, making it hard to breathe. "Where is the alien?" the scarred man demanded. Jack remained silent, earning a punch to his ribs that sent pain shooting through his body. The raider leaned closer. "I asked you a question, Ship. Rat, where is she?" Jack spat blood and glared defiantly. "Gone somewhere, you'll never find her." The raider pulled out a wicked-looking knife. "This can go easy or hard. Your choice. Tell us where the Estrian is, and you might live through this." Jack closed, his eyes preparing for the pain that would come. He had bought Lyra time to escape. That was all that mattered. A sudden blue-white light flooded the tunnel so bright it penetrated. Jack's closed eyelids. The raiders shouted in confusion. The pressure on Jack's chest vanished as the men were thrown backward. He opened his eyes to see Lyra standing at the end of the tunnel, her entire body glowing with pulsing energy. Her silver hair floated around her head as if she were underwater and her galaxy. Eyes blazed with light. "No," Jack whispered. "Why didn't you run?" The raiders scrambled to their feet, reaching for weapons, but Lyra made a sweeping gesture with her arm, and a wave of energy knocked them back against the wall. She stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful despite the cramped space. "I told you, Jack Miller," Lyra said, her voice resonating strangely. "I cannot leave you." The raiders fired their weapons, but the energy bolts seemed to dissipate before reaching her. She approached the struggling men and touched the nearest one's forehead. He immediately collapsed unconscious. She did the same to the others until only the scarred leader remained conscious. He backed away from her, his eyes wide with fear. "You can't do this," he stammered. "The reports said Estrians were peaceful." "You can't fight," Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "The reports were incomplete," she said. Then she touched his forehead, and he crumpled to the floor. The glow around Lyra faded, and she swayed slightly. Jack rushed to steady her as her knees buckled. "Are you okay?" he asked, supporting her weight. She nodded, though she looked exhausted. "Using so much energy at once is difficult," she explained. "It will take time to recover. I told you to run," Jack said, helping her walk down the tunnel. "That was the point of my distraction." Lyra gave him a look that somehow managed to be both tender and exasperated. "You still do not understand. In my culture, when someone saves your life twice, the bond is unbreakable. I could no more leave you behind than I could stop my own heart from beating." They needed to move quickly. The unconscious raiders would eventually be missed. Jack led Lyra through the maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main corridors where fighting still continued. They encountered 2 more raiders, but Lyra rendered them unconscious before they could raise an alarm, though each use of her power seemed to drain her further. Finally, they reached the escape pod bay. It was deserted, everyone being occupied with the battle elsewhere. Jack helped Lyra into one of the small pods designed for emergency evacuations. She collapsed into a seat, her blue skin now pale, almost white. Her silver hair had lost its luster and hung limply around her face. "You need to rest," Jack said, strapping her in before taking the pilot's seat. The pod was designed for 2 people, but was cramped with barely enough room to move. He activated the launch sequence, hoping the raiders hadn't disabled this system too. The pod computer came to life, showing that the system was operational, but emergency protocols required authorization. Jack entered his security code, but the computer flashed a denial. The raiders must have locked down the escape systems, Jack muttered, trying another override code. The computer denied this one too. Lyra reached over weakly to touch the control panel. "Let me," she said. Her fingers trembled as she placed them on the screen. A faint glow emanated from her hand, and the computer suddenly accepted the launch sequence. "The radar systems are similar to some I have studied," she explained as Jack stared in amazement. The escape pod detached from the Orion with a metallic clunk, and thrusters engaged. Pushing them away from the embattled ship, Jack plotted a course for Outpost 7. It was far but within range if they conserved power. The pod's emergency beacon activated automatically, sending their coordinates and a distress signal. But Jack knew it might be hours or even days before help arrived. Lyra slumped in, her seat, her eyes closing. "I need to rest," she whispered. Just for a while, Jack watched her with concern. The glow that usually emanated faintly from her skin was nearly gone. She looked vulnerable in a way he hadn't seen before, even when he first found her injured on her ship sleep. He told her, "It'll keep us safe." As Lyra fell into a deep sleep, Jack monitored the pod systems. They were running at minimal power to extend their range. The life support system was functioning properly, and they had enough oxygen and water for several days. Food was limited to emergency rations, but they would manage. Jack checked the rear scanners. No sign of pursuit yet. The raiders were probably still dealing with the Orion's crew. He hoped Captain Bell and the others were okay. They were trained for combat situations, but the raiders had come prepared with superior weapons and the element of surprise. His thoughts turned to Lyra. What she had done in the maintenance tunnel was extraordinary. He had suspected. Her people had unusual abilities, but nothing like that. He studied her as she slept. Even exhausted, she was beautiful in an otherworldly way. The bond she spoke of confused him, but also stirred something deep inside. What did it mean to be bonded? To someone from another world? Hours passed as the pod drifted through space. Jack dozed occasionally, but mostly kept watch. Finally, Lyra stirred. Her color had improved, and the faint glow had returned to her skin. She opened her eyes. The galaxies, in them spinning slowly. "How long was I asleep?" she asked. "Nearly 10 hours. Jack replied. "You needed it." He offered her water, which she drank gratefully. "I owe you an explanation," Lyra said after a moment. Jack shook his head. "You don't owe me anything, but I'd like to understand what happened back there." Lyra nodded and took a deep breath. "My people, the Astrians, evolved on a world with high radiation levels," she began. "Over millions of years, our cells developed ways to harness this energy rather than being damaged by it. We can store it, manipulate it, and even project it outside our bodies. The ability varies among individuals. I am what my people call an energy adept. My abilities are stronger than most." Jack listened, fascinated as she continued, explaining how Astrians use their energy for healing, for growing their living buildings, and for defense when necessary. "We are peaceful by nature," Lyra said, "but we can fight when we must. Our abilities are why others seek to study or exploit us. The raiders wanted our biological secrets. To them, we are walking technology to be harvested." "And the bond you mentioned?" Jack asked cautiously. "What exactly does that mean?" Lyra looked at him, her expression serious. "Among my people, when someone saves your life, it creates a connection, a sharing of energy at the deepest level. We call it the life debt. When it happens twice, the bond becomes permanent. My people would consider us married in the most sacred way possible." Jack tried to process this information. Married to an alien woman he had known for less than 2 weeks, it sounded crazy. Yet he couldn't deny the connection he felt with Lyra. It went beyond physical attraction, beyond fascination with her alienness. There was something between them he couldn't explain. "I know humans do not share this belief," Lyra said softly. "I do not expect you to honor a tradition you did not choose." She looked away. "I should not have told you." Jack reached over and took her hand, surprising them both. "I'm not rejecting the idea," he said carefully. "I'm just trying to understand it. What does this bond mean exactly? What would it mean for us?" Lyra turned back to him, her eyes brightening. "In my culture, we would be life partners. We would share everything: energy, thoughts, feelings over time. With practice, we might even be able to sense each other's presence across great distances. Before Jack could respond, the pod's alarm system blared. A ship was approaching fast. Jack checked the scanner. Raider vessel, he said. Grimly, they found us. Lyra tensed. How the beacon? Jack realized it's broadcasting our location to Outpost 7, but the raiders must be monitoring the frequency. The raider ship grew larger in their view screen. It was a sleek black vessel bristling with weapons. A voice came over the pod's communication system. Attention escape pod. This is Vincent Kane of the Black Nova. We have you locked in our tractor beam. Prepare to be boarded. Jack frantically tried to break free from the invisible pull of the tractor beam, but the pod's small engines were no match for the Raiders' technology. Lyra placed her hand on his arm. It's okay, Jack, she said with surprising calm. I knew this might happen. What do you mean? Jack asked. Confused, Lyra looked at him with determination. I sent a message while you were sleeping, using the pod's communication system but on an Astrian frequency. My people have an outpost in this sector much closer than your Outpost 7. They should be here. Soon. Jack stared at her. How did you know how to send a message on our systems? Lyra smiled slightly. I told you I was a researcher studying other cultures. I specialized in human technology. The pod's controls were simple compared to what I usually work with. Jack gasped as energy surged through his body. It felt like electricity, but pleasant, warm, and somehow familiar. Colors became brighter, sounds sharper. He could feel his heartbeat synchronizing with Lyra's. The strangest sensation was a new awareness of her, not just physically but emotionally. He could sense her determination, her fear, and something deeper, something that felt remarkably like love. When Lyra pulled away, Jack noticed a faint blue glow emanating from his skin, similar to hers, but less intense. He felt stronger, more alert. His fatigue had vanished, replaced by a humming energy that made him want to move to act. It worked, Lyra whispered, looking at him with wonder. You accepted the energy completely. Not all non-Astrians can. She touched his face gently. Can you feel me? Jack nodded, unable to find words for the connection between them. It was like having another sense entirely, one he had never imagined possible. The pod shuddered again as the raiders completed the docking procedure. They could hear mechanical sounds as the airlock was forced open. Jack stood feeling strangely confident, despite the danger. What do we do now? He asked. Lyra rose beside him, moving with renewed strength. We fight, she said simply. But not like humans fight, like Astrians. She showed him how to focus the energy now flowing through him, how to direct it outward in controlled bursts. The concept was foreign, but somehow his body understood, even if his mind struggled to comprehend. The airlock door slid open with a hiss. 3 raiders stood there, weapons raised. They hesitated, clearly surprised to see both prisoners standing ready. Jack and Lyra moved in perfect synchronization. Lyra extended her hand palm forward, and Jack mirrored her action. Together, they released a wave of energy that threw the raiders backward into the airlock. More raiders appeared, firing energy weapons. Jack instinctively created a shield of blue light that absorbed the blasts. The knowledge of how to do this came not from his mind but from the connection with Lyra. They were sharing not just energy but skills and instincts. Vincent Kane appeared behind his men. His scarred face twisted in a snarl. So the rumors were true, he said. The Astrian chose a mate. He aimed his weapon at Jack. If I can't have you both ill, at least have your bodies to study. He fired, but Lyra was faster. She pulled Jack aside, and they responded with a combined energy pulse that knocked Kane against the wall. The other raiders pressed forward, using the narrow space to their advantage. Jack and Lyra were pushed back into the escape pod. We can't beat them all, Jack said as more raiders appeared. We need to get to their bridge, take control of the ship. Lyra nodded, understanding his plan through their connection. They moved together, combining their energy to create a blinding flash of light. The raiders covered their eyes momentarily. Blinded Jack and Lyra rushed forward through the disoriented raiders, making their way into the main ship. The raiders' vessel was larger than the escape pod, but still relatively small. Jack could sense its layout through Lyra's knowledge. She had studied ships like this one. They fought their way through corridors, Jack marveling at abilities he never knew he could possess. He could create energy shields, deflect attacks, and even render attackers unconscious with a touch. But he noticed each use of power drained them. The shared energy was finite and diminishing with each confrontation. Ro seemed to sense his concern. "Do not worry," she said as they hurried down a corridor. "These abilities are temporary for you. The energy will fade." She didn't need to say what Jack already understood through their connection. Once the energy faded, their immediate advantage would be gone. They reached what appeared to be the bridge. A sealed door blocked their way. Jack placed his hand on the control panel, channeling energy into the ship's systems. The door slid open, revealing Vincent, Kane, and two guards waiting for them. Kane smiled cruelly. "I knew you'd come here," he said. "The energy manipulation is impressive but predictable. You Astrians always think you're so superior with your powers. Yet here you are, trapped on my ship." Jack felt Lyra's confidence waver. She had used too much energy. First saving him in the tunnels, then sharing her power with him, she was reaching her limits. He stepped slightly in front of her protectively. "You won't win, Kane," Jack said. "We have reinforcements coming." Kane laughed. "You mean your distress signal to Outpost 7? We blocked it hours ago. No one is coming to save you. You're wrong," Lyra said. Her voice was tired but determined. "I contacted my people. They know exactly where we are." Kane's smile faltered slightly, then returned. "You're bluffing. Astrians avoid this sector. It's why we operate here." Before Lyra could respond, the entire ship shook violently. Warning alarms blared throughout the bridge. "What's happening?" Kane demanded from his crew. One of the raiders checked the sensor readings. "It's another ship, sir. Big one just appeared out of nowhere." "It's firing on our engines," Kane swore loudly, then turned back to Jack and Lyra with hatred in his eyes. "If I'm going down, you're coming with me." He raised his weapon and fired. Jack pushed Lyra aside, taking the blast in his shoulder. Pain exploded through him, but the energy Lyra had shared helped him stay conscious. Lyra cried out, feeling Jack's pain through their connection. She gathered the last of her strength and released a powerful wave of energy that slammed Kane and his guards against the wall, knocking them unconscious. She rushed to Jack's side, her hands already glowing with healing energy. Jack felt warmth spreading from his wounded shoulder as Lyra poured her remaining power into healing him. The pain receded, but he could feel her weakening with each passing second. "Stop," he said, grabbing her wrists. "You'll drain yourself completely. It's worth it," she whispered. Her once brilliant galaxy eyes were dimming, the silver swirls moving sluggishly. "I won't lose you." Jack pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly despite his injury. "You won't lose me. But we need to save some energy." The ship rocked again, more violently this time. The raiders' vessel was taking heavy damage. Jack helped Lyra to her feet, and they made their way to the control panel. The ship systems were failing, but Jack managed to access communications. A calm voice, speaking the musical language of the Astrians, came through the speakers. Lyra responded weakly in the same language. The voice switched to English. "This is Commander Alara of the Astrian vessel, Celestial Guardian. We have disabled the raider ship. Prepare for extraction." Relief washed over Jack as he held Lyra close. They had survived. The raiders were defeated and help had arrived. But what would happen now, Jack wondered. Would Lyra's people accept him? Would they honor the bond that had formed between a human mechanic and an Astrian scientist? Or would they take Lyra away, separating them forever? A bright light enveloped them, and Jack felt the strange sensation of molecular transport. They materialized in what appeared to be the medical bay of an advanced ship. Several blue-skinned Astrians in silver uniforms moved forward to help Lyra, who had finally lost consciousness. Jack refused to let go of her hand, even as they placed her on a medical platform. A tall female Astrian approached Jack. Her silver hair was streaked with blue, and her uniform indicated High-Rank Commander Alara. "I presume," Jack said. The commander nodded, studying him with interest, particularly the fading blue glow still visible on his skin. "You share her energy," she observed. "That is rare." Jack met her gaze steadily. "She saved my life. I saved hers. We are bonded, Commander." Alara's expression revealed nothing. "You understand what that means for an Astrian?" Jack nodded. "I do, and I accept it fully." The commander seemed surprised. "For a human, you show remarkable acceptance of our ways. Most would fear such a connection." Jack looked at Lyra's unconscious form. Most humans haven't met someone like her. A medical officer approached, speaking rapidly to the commander in their language. Jack caught the concern in their tone, though he couldn't understand the words. "Is she going to be okay?" he asked, anxiety building. Commander Alara turned to him. "She has depleted her energy to dangerous levels, healing you, fighting the raiders, and sharing her power. It was too much. Can't you help her?" Jack demanded. "You must have ways to restore her energy." The commander hesitated. "There is a way, but it is rarely done with non-Astrans. The energy transfer must be reciprocal, a balance maintained." Jack didn't hesitate. "I'll do it. Whatever it takes, Commander." Alara studied him for a long moment, then nodded to the medical officer who guided Jack to lie on a platform next to Lyra. Two other Astrians positioned themselves at the head of each platform, placing their hands near but not touching Jack and Lyra. The air in the room seemed to thicken with potential energy. "Close your eyes," the medical officer instructed Jack. "Think of the bond between you and Lyra. Focus on that connection." Jack did as instructed, picturing the moment they had shared energy in the escape pod. The feeling of their hearts beating as one. The sense of her presence in his mind. He felt something stir within him, a remnant of the energy Lyra had shared. The Astrian healers began to glow their hands, emitting the now familiar silver-blue light. Jack felt a pulling sensation as if something was being drawn from deep inside him. At the same time, new energy flowed in, replacing what was taken. He understood they were balancing the energy between him and Lyra, taking his excess, human vitality and combining it with their Astrian energy to heal her. The process seemed to last forever, though it was probably only minutes. Jack felt lightheaded but not weakened somehow, both giving and receiving energy. When it ended, the healers stepped back looking tired. Jack woke to the sound of soft voices speaking in the musical language of the Astrians. He kept his eyes closed, listening to the gentle rise and fall of their words. Though he couldn't understand them, the language was beautiful, almost like singing. His body felt rested, the pain from his injuries gone. He could sense Lyra nearby. Her presence in his mind was a warm glow like sunlight on closed eyelids. He opened his eyes to find himself in a large room with curved walls that pulsed with soft light similar to Lyra's ship, but more sophisticated, the medical bay of the Astrian vessel Celestial Guardian. He remembered now they had been rescued from the raiders. Lyra sat on the edge of her bed talking with Commander Alara and an older Astrian male whose silver hair had faded to white. She looked fully recovered, her blue skin glowing with health, her galaxy eyes bright and alert. When she noticed Jack was awake, she smiled a smile that made his heart skip. "You are awake," she said. Crossing to his bed, the others followed her. Jack sat up, feeling stronger than he expected. The older Astrian studied him with open curiosity, while Commander Alara maintained her professional demeanor. "Jack, this is Elder Talon." Lyra introduced the older Astrian. "He is a member of the High Council and happened to be at our outpost when my message arrived." Elder Talon bowed his head slightly in greeting. "Your bond with Lyra interests us greatly, human. It is unprecedented in recent history." Jack looked between them, uncertain how to respond. "Is that a problem?" he asked. The elder laughed, a musical sound. "Not a problem. A fascinating development. We have avoided close contact with humans for generations. Yet here you are, sharing energy with one of our most promising scientists." Commander Alara was more direct. "The raiders have been dealt with." She said their ship was disabled and the crew taken into custody. They will face justice for their attacks on our vessels and their attempts to steal our biological technology. Thanks to you and Lyra, we have prevented a serious breach of security. Jack nodded, glad to hear the raiders would be punished. What happens now? He asked, looking at Lyra. The question held deeper meaning than just their immediate future, and he knew she understood. We are approaching our outpost, Lyra said. We will arrive within the hour. Her eyes held a message she couldn't speak openly in front of the others. We need to talk alone. Jack understood. She turned to the Elder and Commander. May I have some time with Jack to explain our customs regarding the bond? The Elder nodded knowingly. Of course, the bonding is a private matter. Commander Alara looked less convinced but agreed. They left the medical bay, the door sealing behind them as, soon as they were alone, Lyra took Jack's hands in hers. I must tell you something important, she said. Her galaxy eyes were serious. My people are divided on how to proceed. Some, like Elder Talon, see our bond as an opportunity for renewed relations. With humans, others are concerned. Sharing our energy abilities with outsiders is forbidden by ancient law. Jack squeezed her hands. What does that mean for us? Lyra sighed. There are 3 possibilities. First, they could accept our bond and allow you to live among us. This is what Elder Talon advocates. Second, they could accept our bond but require us to live away from Astrian territories, perhaps on Earth or a neutral colony. This is what Commander Alara prefers. And the third option, Jack prompted. Sensing her hesitation, Lyra looked down. Third, they could attempt to sever our bond. The process would be painful, possibly dangerous, and would separate us forever. This is what the more conservative members of the Council may demand. Jack felt a chill at the thought of their connection being broken forcibly. In the short time they had been bonded, it had become precious to him. He couldn't imagine losing it, losing her. Would you want that? He asked softly. Would you want our bond broken? Lyra looked up sharply, her eyes flashing. Never, she said fiercely. The bond is sacred. Even suggesting it shows how little some of my people remember our oldest traditions. When I shared my energy with you, I made a choice I do not regret. Jack felt relief wash over him. That makes 2 of us, he said with a smile. They spent the next hour planning how to address the Astrian Council. Lyra explained their customs, their values, and what arguments would be most persuasive. Jack listened carefully, asking questions, trying to understand a culture so different from his own, yet increasingly important to his future. When they arrived at the outpost, Jack was escorted to guest quarters, while Lyra met privately with the council. He understood the protocol, but disliked being separated from her. Through their bond, he could sense her determination and occasional frustration, but the distance weakened the connection. The Astrian outpost was beautiful. Built into an asteroid, it contained gardens, crystal structures, and technology far beyond human capabilities. The few Astrians he encountered regarded him with cautious curiosity. Some seemed friendly, others wary. All clearly knew who he was and why he was there. News of the human, bonded to Lyra, had spread quickly. After several hours, Jack was summoned to the council chamber. 5 Astrian elders, including Talon, sat in a semicircle with Commander Alara standing to one side. Lyra waited in the center of the room, her posture straight and dignified. Jack moved to stand beside her, automatically reaching for her hand. She took it. Their fingers intertwining, Elder Talon spoke first. We have heard Lyra's account of your meeting, her rescue, and the formation of your bond. Now we wish to hear from you. Jack Miller. Why should we accept this unprecedented connection between our peoples? Jack took a deep breath. I didn't choose this bond at first. He began honestly. It chose me when I saved Lyra from her damaged ship. I didn't understand what it meant in your culture. But when I chose to save her again from the raiders, and when she saved me in return, I began to understand. Something stirred in the council at his words. The bond grew stronger when we shared energy to fight the raiders. Jack continued. I felt what it truly meant to be connected to another being. It's not just about tradition or custom. It's about something deeper. something that transcends the differences between our species. A female elder with intricate patterns in her silver hair spoke next. Your words are passionate human, but do you truly understand what it means to be bonded to an Astrian? It is not a temporary arrangement. It is lifelong. Your human lifespan will be extended through the bond. Your biology will slowly change. You will never be fully human again, nor will you be Astrian. You will be something in between. Jack hadn't known this. He looked at Lyra, who nodded, confirming the elder's words. Is that why some of your people fear this bond, he asked. Because it changes both of us. The female elder inclined her head. Precisely. Jack considered this new information, then looked around the chamber meeting. Each elder's eyes. I understand your concerns, he said. But consider this. Humans and Astrians have kept their distance for generations, observing but never truly connecting. What if that was a mistake? What if we were meant to learn from each other, to grow together? Lyra and I may be the first to form this bond, but we don't have to be the last, Commander. Ilara stepped forward. This is exactly what concerns us, she said. If others follow your example, the distinctions between our species will blur. Our unique abilities may be diluted or exploited. We have remained separate for good reasons. Lyra spoke then, her voice clear and confident. The ancient texts speak of a time before separation, when Astrians and humans lived in harmony. Those texts describe bonds like ours not as aberrations, but as strengths. Our abilities were never meant to isolate us. They were meant to be shared. With those worthy of them, Jack has proven himself worthy. The council murmured among themselves. Jack could sense the division, some agreeing with Lyra, others resistant. Finally, Elder Talon raised his hand for silence. We must consider all perspectives, he said. This is not a decision to be made hastily. Jack Miller will remain our guest while we deliberate. Jack and Lyra were escorted from the chamber. Back in Jack's quarters, they waited anxiously for the council's decision. Through their bond, Jack could feel Lyra's tension mirroring his own. The future of their relationship, perhaps even the future of human-Astrian relations, hung in the balance. It was nearly a day before Elder Talon came to them. The old Astrian's face was solemn as he entered Jack's quarters. Lyra stood immediately, sensing the importance of the moment. Jack joined her, their hands finding each other automatically. The council has reached a decision, Elder Talon announced. We recognize the bond between Lyra and Jack Miller as valid under our most ancient laws. Jack felt Lyra's surge of joy through their connection, but Talon's expression remained serious. However, the elder continued, there are conditions. Jack and Lyra exchanged glances. What conditions? Jack asked. First, you must undergo training in our ways, Jack Miller. Talon said, you must learn to control the energy you now share with Lyra. Untrained, you could be dangerous to yourself and others. Second, you and Lyra will serve as ambassadors between our peoples, helping to build understanding and trust. This is not a role to be taken lightly. And third, Talon continued, you must both agree to regular examinations by our scientists and yours. The effects of your bond are unprecedented in modern times. We must document and understand what happens when our species truly connect. The conditions were reasonable, better than Jack had hoped. He looked at Lyra, who nodded her agreement. We accept. He said. Elder Talon finally smiled. Then, on behalf of the Astrian Council, I welcome you, Jack Miller, as the first human-bonded citizen in 10 generations.